Okay, we are going to start a new section. This is going to be with Dad. Um, and we're going to figure out how it is that he got to where he's at. Okay?
I was born on October 5th, 1938, at Hurley Hospital in Flint, Michigan. And just after I was born, Mother and Dad bought a house truck, and there was no jobs in Flint area, so they went up north and picked vegetables for that summer there.
Now, this house truck, what are you talking about?
House truck. It's like, now I think it would be like a school bus with everything, a stove, ice box and beds and everything, and it'd be like a
motorhome.
Motorhome nowadays. Yeah.
Well, how long did you guys live in that?
Oh, I don't know, maybe a year.
Really?
A year, because I was born in October, so I don't know if it was quite that fall after I was born. They went right up there, or the following year. But then when we got back, we lived over on Oklahoma. Dad parked the truck behind Grandma and Grandpa's, and he started digging graves out to Sunset Hills and River Rest Cemetery.
So he was a grave digger?
He by hand with a shovel. They dug graves.
Okay, that one I didn't know.
Yeah.
So,
That light come on.
yeah, it's supposed to.
Oh, okay. I just noticed it.
So your parents, they went up north to pick vegetables?
Pick vegetables. That was the only jobs they could get at the time.
But 38. That was right at the end of the Depression.
Right.
Yeah.
It was late 38, early 39 that they moved up there for that.
Okay. Cool. Great grandma and grandpa Rouse and great grandma and grandpa Dilly.
Yeah.
Okay. Where were they from?
You mean my grandparents?
Yeah, your grandparents.
Okay. My grandpa and grandma Dilly, they were originally from Ohio.
Okay.
And grandpa was born in 1868. And grandma was born in the 1870s.
Right after the Civil War.
Right, because grandpa had an older brother that was killed in the Civil War. And he's buried, I want to say Petersburg, but it's, no, it's right on the river someplace. They had a big fight. So he's buried in, down there. He fought in the Civil War on the Union.
On the Union side.
And we checked back for Grandpa. Grandpa Dilly. His name was Wilbur Orpheus Dilly.
Orpheus?
Orpheus. And
Lord, there's some strange things back then.
And they went, I think he was born in Sandusky, Ohio. That's a grandma in that area too. But trace the family back, it's to where now West Virginia is.
Oh, okay.
At the time it was Virginia. But when we was living in Pennsylvania there, Wonder Bread, I worked with a guy, and his name was Joe Dilly. Well, I had a cousin Joe, so we was talking to him, and they've tried tracing his family back, and as far as they can go, is back to what is now West Virginia.
So, basically, if I remember correctly, the furthest we go back is Schuyler Rouse?
Well, Schuyler, on the Rouse side,
Yeah.
I think as far as you can go back, is up in the Indian Territory, up in the Lower Peninsula,
Okay.
up around Mount Pleasant area.
And the Dillies were from West Virginia.
Originally. Well, Grandpa was.
Yeah. Okay.
But they was both born in Ohio.
And Grandma and Grandpa Rouse. Your Grandma and Grandpa Rouse.
My grandpa, he was born in, I'm not quite sure. I know Grandma was born in Chicago.
Oh, really?
Yes,
Oh.
she was Myrtle Smith. And I don't think you could go to Chicago and try to train.
There'd only be about 10,000 of them, probably.
Probably, yeah. So there's no way you could trace it back that way. But Grandpa, he had, his father was named Schuyler. He had an older brother, Schuyler. And there was Danny. And then there was one that I know it, but I can't think of it right now. he ran the cemetery over in Duran and drove an old Model A with a tar paper roof because he used to redo the roof every once in a while. And he went through 3 ladies off the reservation in his lifetime.
Actually, off
Yes.
Oh,
Because
okay.
see, Grandpa, my great grandfather, he was half Indian,
Oh, okay.
Chippewa,
Oh, okay.
and so they was from all that area up there. Because you look at a picture of my grandfather, and you can tell it my dad, and
Oh, yeah.
also my brother
Yeah.
Lee.
Yeah,
They have the high cheekbones and everything. And Grandma, my grandma, she had a couple of brothers that lived right in the Flint area because we used to go up to Beaverton to visit one of her brothers there. And then there was some that lived in the north area of Flint, but their name was Smith. Wilbur Smith was the one we visited up to Beaverton, and their brother Frank Smith lived in Flint area too. But how she ever got to the Flint area, I think she was only 15 when she married my grandfather. So, but she was a very beautiful woman when she was born.
Yeah, I've seen pictures of her, but I just
Yeah.
can't imagine, because I've got 2 daughters that's over that age, and I can't imagine them getting married at that age.
My grandfather, Dilly, I met one of his brothers that I can remember when I was a little kid up to Boyne City, Milton.
Where's that at?
Boyne City, it's up around Traverse City up north in that
Oh,
area.
okay,
Yeah,
okay.
because see, when Grandpa was younger, he was in lumbering, all in the northern Lower Peninsula, the White Pine.
Yeah.
And he got hurt, he was coming out one winter with a sled and horses, and a log come loose and hit his leg. And as long as I remember, Grandpa always used one crutch. And so he had a brother up there, and Grandma, Dilly, which her name was Susan.
Yeah.
She had a brother Garrison and a sister Ann M. They used to come up there. And they lived on River Road, which was direct across from where your mother lived, there on Potter Road. Because we did always the hunting there. Because you might as well say they lived in a little house that was owned by Dr. Haig.
So,
And Dr. Haig was the one that brought me in the world.
So in other words, both you and Mom, your sides opposite, actually lived across the street from each other long before y'all ever met.
Well, it was actually, yeah, I'd be about a mile away.
Yeah.
Because they lived right across the road from Dr. Haig on River Road. And that's where your mother's dad, his farm right across the road is where we hunted all the time.
That's wild.
Because I know one time we got out of the car and I smelled a skunk. And I asked my dad, I said, what do we do if we see that thing? He says, well, I think you better shoot.
Yeah.
I come riding or walking over the ridge there, and here's that skunk looking right at me. He started turning around, and I pulled up and got him right in the throat. If I hadn't, I'd have been in trouble.
Oh, Now, Grandma Rouse, your mom,
Yes.
she was born
She was born in Boone, Michigan, 1914.
Boone, Michigan.
Boone, Michigan. That was up by Cadillac,
Oh, okay.
up in that area.
And she was born 1914.
1914. She had brothers. Burton was born in the late 1800s, and he died in birth. Then I had Uncle Lloyd. He was next. He fought in the First World War. Uncle Harv, he lived to be 99, and died out in California. There was Uncle Everett and Uncle Reynolds, my mother, then Uncle Leo, and they're all passed away now.
Yeah, Uncle Leo's the one just passed last year.
Right, right. Last Christmas.
Yeah. Now, Grandpa Rouse, your dad,
Right.
he was, what, next to the youngest?
No, there was Aunt Eva,
Was
Uncle
he-
Manley,
Okay.
then my dad. Then there was Reverend F Rouse.
The Reverend Rouse, yes.
And
Somehow that just doesn't fit with his family, but okay.
Uncle Bill, then Aunt Dorothy, and Uncle Don that just passed away.
Yeah.
So Uncle Bill and Aunt Dorothy are still alive. They're in their 80s.
She was the one that was up at Uncle Lee's when we went up there,
Right, that was Aunt Dorothy.
when, what is your actual earliest memory that you have?
The earliest memory I have, and nobody believes me, and they don't think I'm telling the truth, but when we come back from up north in that house trailer, I would have been, that Christmas, I'd have been 14 months.
Right.
Christmas Eve, at the time, Santa Claus come in that front door and put stuff under the tree. I will always believe that somebody come in that door. My mother and dad said I was wrong. And nobody has ever believed me, but I'd swear on a stack of Bibles, somebody come in there.
Well, we're going to cover a story later on that a lot of people are not going to believe, and to me, I'm amazed with it. We'll cover that later. But all right, after you guys were in the house trailer, and then you moved on to Oklahoma Street.
Yeah, and then after we left there, we moved around Flushing Road and Lavelle Road. We had a house there. There was a store on the corner, and we lived right next to it.
Didn't it used to be a Sunshine food store or something? Eventually that turned into that Sunshine?
I might have, I'm not
I'm
sure.
thinking that's where I'm thinking.
But I knew their kids were older than me, but hung around the Shan brothers, and then there was Carol McGilvery. Her mother and dad owned the store, and then I didn't see her till I got back in high school. But two things that I remember, while we lived on Flushing Road, it was during World War II, and we used to have blackouts.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't have any lights on, and the air raid wardens would travel around. And we had a guy across the road, and he left a basement light on. That was the only light. They gave him a big fine for having that light on.
Okay, now this is Flint, Michigan. Why in the world would they have blackouts in Flint, Michigan?
Well, it's because, like, might be a possibility of Germany or Japan having planes capable of coming over, because you got your big GM plants in Flint. They were building trucks, Jeeps, and they had the tank plant out to Grand Blanc, where Fisher Body was.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
And they used to have a proving ground out there for the tanks. And that's why all over the United States you had blackouts, air raids.
I just never understood, I'm thinking it's in the middle of the country. We got big oceans on either side. What are the chances? Why would they have a blackout in Flint, Michigan?
The Japanese, they bombed the West Coast by submarine.
Yeah, that's true.
And then another thing that it was during the war, everything was rationed. And you could buy, I think it was 2 tires. And my dad had the ration card. He went and bought 2 brand new tires. We was coming home, I think, from Grandma's out to Flushing, and we went to make a left turn in. This motorcycle come flying around and hit us in the rear as we was pulling in, and cut up one of those brand new tires. Well, Dad didn't have the coupon to buy another tire, so he had to scrounge around and get an old used one to put on there.
Okay. Now this is something that I guarantee none of my kids and their kids and their kids will have no clue what you're talking about when you're talking about a ration card. Explain what that
Well, a
is.
ration card, you was only allowed to buy a certain amount, like a certain amount of sugar per week. You could only buy a certain amount of beef. There was a lot of things. There was no cars built from early 1942 till after the war in 45, because there was no cars being built. It was all for trucks, Jeeps, and everything like that. And it was funny. There was no butter to be bought, and you'd buy. It was a plastic bag of oleo with like a little pill in it, kind of orangish red.
Mm-hmm.
And before you open that plastic bag, with your hands you'd start working that, so it'd end up yellow.
To look like butter.
Right.
Even though it wasn't.
No, but it would turn yellow. You'd work it
so everything was rationed.
Oh, just about everything.
Gas.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Big time.
Because Mother ran out. This was after we moved down Bertha. she didn't have the card to go get gas that week. She burned diesel fuel in a car. They Howard Harris
That's
next
amazing.
door bought some. It was kerosene or diesel fuel. Put it in that car, and Mother ran it.
And it ran.
Yes.
See, that's the thing. It's stuff like this that there is no way. I mean, even myself. I mean, because I was born in '63, and we didn't have ration cards or anything like that. I remember the gas wars and stuff. It was nothing like that. But it's hard to explain to somebody, you know, that you couldn't just go to the supermarket and buy
No.
5 gallon or 5
No.
pounds of sugar and 10 pounds of meat or whatever.
No, it was like in your foreign countries, you read about, in Germany, everything was rationed.
Mm-hmm.
It was the same thing in the United States during the war.
It's just not something you hear a lot about.
Yeah, we lived there, I think just about a year. And so Mother and Dad was going to buy a house on the east side of Flint. Well, they went someplace and left me with the Motts that lived on Pasadena Avenue. And they was just about ready to make the deal to live on the east side. And they come to pick me up. And I saw Mother and Dad there. So I started to go across, a car was coming. So I stopped. Well, the car stopped, I took off, and the car hit me.
How old were you then?
4 years old. And it put me in the hospital, split my head wide open, busted both collarbones. And I had a little army suit on at the time. So they took me up to Hurley, and they strapped both my arms down because they both broke.
Yeah.
And I remember this little kid that was in there with me, his mother and dad brought in candy. And he would come over and feed me candy while I was strapped in bed. But then, of course, they couldn't buy that house. So we moved over on Bertha, which was where Grandma Rouse and Grandpa Rouse had that house at Bertha in Pasadena. Well, this is down towards the end of Bertha. We lived there about 6 months. It was a beautiful home. Inside toilet, running water, and everything. Well, the woman, her kids wanted the house, so we had to move out. So we moved over one street onto McCullum, and the house we got, 1 bedroom, a living room, a dining room, and a real small kitchen. Well, there was 2 of us boys, me and Ronnie. We slept on a railway bed in the dining room. But no running water in the house, an outside john. And there was 4 lots altogether. At the corner of the 4 lots was the hand pump. You'd have to go out there and get the water and bring it back to the house. Well, finally, they put, this was after World War II, they put a pump out there, regular pump, and everybody, no, it was during World War II, because they, you know, we was piping it in all 4 houses. Well, my dad got drafted, and he got a deferment where he could finish digging that trench all the way from out there up to the house to put the water in and then report. Well, World War II was just about over at that time. They was done in Europe. And Dad was 31, so they raised the age limit. And Dad didn't have to go. And what made him mad about the whole thing, it wasn't not going in, he just never got a uniform. And they would send me, when we had these 4 houses off this pump down there, the bill came to our house. So once a month, I went to all 3 houses, Bauders, Romix, and Kaisers, to collect their share of that bill.
Just out of curiosity, do you have any idea how much, do you remember how much that bill ever was?
No.
I was just kind of curious compared to, like,
Yeah.
my $130
Oh,
water
no,
bill
no,
the
it's
other
like-
day.
I might have collected, I don't know, $1, $2 each. And each one might give me a quarter.
Just for,
Yeah, because what, in them days, I remember Pasadena Drugs over there. They had banana splits, 36 cents. 35 cents on a penny tax. I saved up 18 bottles. I scrounged around and finally got 18 bottles. Took them over there and got my banana split.
18 bottles. for
18 bottles at 2 cents a
bottle.
piece.
You know, and it's funny. You tell people about that, and they don't have a clue what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Because Michigan was one of the few states where you had returnable
Right,
bottles.
'cause,
And they still do.
That's all we had then. And they put a pump, Dad did, between the house and the garden. And so they had their own well.
Is that where it was?
That's when you kids remember,
Yeah,
where they
the
lived
pump
there.
house out back.
And just after World War II, I was about 7, 8 years old. And there wasn't any bikes to be bought. Well, Davises that lived kitty corner from us over on the Valley Road. Teddy was getting, I don't know, too big or something. But he had an old Schwinn bike, like your mother's got.
Yeah.
It was a boy's bike. Heavy old thing with a little case in the middle with a horn on the lights. And the only way I could ride that thing, I'd get on the porch, get on the bike and push off and then ride. If I wanted to stop, I'd have to jump off and then go back to the porch to start up again because it was so big and heavy that I couldn't
Oh, yeah.
I couldn't do anything with
it.
it.
Yeah.
No. So, but later on, I went to Spiegel, and they had a bicycle for sale for, I think it was $32. Dad told me if I sold, it was Christmas cards and all get-together cards.
Mhm.
If I sold 16 boxes, which I would get $16, he would put the other $16 in. So that's how I bought my first bike. After that big one, I bought this other one that I could ride.
And he paid half.
He paid half, and I remember I went over to Mr. Hetzel, and I told him, I said, if you buy this box, well, I told him if you want, but he says, well, I don't have any use for it. And I says, yeah, but if you buy this box, I'll be able to buy my bike. He says, okay, hand me a dollar. But that's how I paid for my first bike.
You talked about Uncle Ronnie. When was Uncle Ronnie born?
He was born in 1942.
1942. So
Right.
there's 4 years difference between you and me.
Right. He was born, what now, today's they call Down syndrome,
Right.
but then we called it mongoloid.
Right.
And Mother didn't know it, Mother and Dad didn't know it till just after he was born. And they got life insurance on him when he was born, $500. But when they found out that he was mongoloid, they could never buy any more insurance.
Do they ever know what caused it?
It's women, they'll get like, what is it, German measles and something when they're pregnant for the kid.
Okay.
It's a common occurrence because I've been driving, most of my life. You go in like going to Atlanta quite a bit, different places.
Yeah.
They'd have these places, and that's what was working there.
Right.
These Down syndromes.
Yeah.
And it's more common than people realize.
Yeah. And the thing is, and I've noticed, all Down syndrome kids
Mhm.
have the same features.
Oh yes, they got that oriental eyes, like the, what do they call it, almond shape.
Yeah, the almond-shaped eyes.
Yes,
And the round
They
head.
are. They're
short in stature.
right. Kind of a high forehead. But they told Mother and Dad that Ronnie had never lived past 11. He lived to be 50 years old. They told Mother and Dad not to have any more children because it'd be too rough on them. So they waited another 8 years before my brother was born.
Where Uncle Lee was born.
Right, and I noticed when Lee was small, there was a cripple boy that was in his class. And I think Leon was more compassion of him because of having a brother that way.
And I think that affected all of us. I mean, and I'm still that way. And I've noticed, that Larry and Bob the same way. With having Uncle Ronnie with Down syndrome and stuff, it affects you different, and you look at people different that have a disability or a handicap or a mental problem or something like that. Because they are the most loving people that you'll ever meet.
When you take a Down syndrome, when he was put in this was in 57, so Ronnie was about 15, and he was real short and stocky and strong. Well, the kids in the neighborhood picked on him. Even the next door neighbors sprayed him with a hose. Well, the kids would pick on Ron to get him to chase him. But it got a mother's nerve so bad, what if Ronnie ever caught one of those kids?
Yeah.
These kids, sure they could run faster because Ron couldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
So mother put him in the home up there at Mount Pleasant. This is when I was in the service. And he was in up there, whole rooms of them. And he would take care of the smaller kids, make their beds, clean their dishes. But then some idiot in Lansing says, if they work, you got to pay them minimum wage. Well, one kid up there, all he did was sweep sidewalks. And they all had their jobs.
Yeah.
Well, it was something keeping busy.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, this guy says you got to pay them minimum wage. That meant these kids could just sit in the corner all day not doing anything.
That's the bureaucrats for you.
Yeah, and finally, Ronnie got into a private home, and it was about 4 or 5 kids would be in a home, adults really. I classify them kids, but they were adults. And then Ronnie got a job at Mid-Michigan Industries,
Mm-hmm.
and he was capable of putting little rubber gaskets on the end of shock absorbers. And he made a small amount of money, but it went to the state because the state was paying most of that because I just got a small SSI check for him every month.
Grandma told me a story, and I don't remember the whole story, but you guys used to have a chicken coop out back?
We had a chicken coop, yeah, and
Yeah.
Ronnie would climb in there with the chickens
Yeah.
and sit all day, or we had a dog pal, and Ronnie would sit out there with that dog all day, waving a hanky. I don't know why, but just fascinating, waving that hanky. But that's what he would sit and do all day long out there.
I don't think I ever have a memory of Uncle Ronnie where he didn't have a hanky of some kind.
Yeah.
And I mean, in all the years that I remember, I never saw him upset one time, except one time.
Yeah.
And I actually thought the man was going to break me in half, but that's beside the point. I mean, what was he like growing up?
Well, he was, well, sometimes if I was watching him, I would get the kid so mad just by hitting on him that he didn't want to tear me up. But sometime, I remember one time at the meal, sitting out in the kitchen, me, Ronnie, and Lynn. Lynn was probably, I think this is just after I got out of the service, so Lynn was about 10 years old. No, it was before I got out of the service, because Ronnie was still home. And Lee did something, and Dad told him to straighten up right now. Made Ronnie so mad. He picked up the dish of mashed potatoes and dumped it around my dad's head.
It was his way of protecting
Right.
his little brother.
But he would, I know my mother used to say, he wanted a piece of pie. Mother says, no, wait till we get done eating. Go in the other room till we get done eating. Okay, and all at once she heard the worst scream. Here come Ronnie turning in that kitchen, just reached in, grabbed out of the pie and just threw it at her. He'd just get mad if he, sometimes, but, he was a nice kid, but...
It's funny because I've seen you and him together, and you and him were tight. You guys had a really great relationship, and it's like the last video that we got of that Christmas. He would do just about anything you told him to do, and and I thought that was so neat. But the way he laughed and the way he smiled.
Well, what it was, he got I think it's candle or a Santa Claus lit that you just plug in the wall. He was there loud. I said, go plug it in Mom's nose. It was stretching it in my mother's nose.
I mean, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
He was so much fun, and I don't think anybody ever gave him the credit due to him as to. Okay, there was a lot. I mean, he couldn't speak and stuff.
Yeah.
But he was a lot more intelligent than people gave him credit
Well,
for.
yes, like I mentioned, if you had 6 people in the living room, he wanted a cookie, he would bring the right amount of cookies.
Mm-hmm.
They said one time he had the intelligence, even though he couldn't talk or anything, he had the intelligence of a 4-year-old.
Yeah.
But
I don't
how do you rate it,
Yeah, that's the thing.
But there's, like I had students from Central Michigan when I was running Guardian. They'd send me letters. they was going to do this with Ronnie. They was going to do that with Ronnie. They was going to give him money so he could go over the commissary, pick out what he wanted, and give him the right change. Well, I told your mother,
yeah.
no way could he ever do that,
Yeah,
and he
wasn't.
couldn't. So
Yeah, he wasn't that advanced.
yeah,
Now, Uncle Lee was how much younger than you?
he's 12 years.
12 years.
See, I had Uncle Don, who was 12 years older than me. I was 12 years older than Lynn. Lynn was 12 years older than Bob, and Bob's 12 years older
And Tim.
than Tim.
It's amazing how that all
See,
worked out.
When I was 6 years old, Mom and Dad wouldn't give me a pistol. You know, cat pistol?
Yeah.
My grandfather bought me a single shot cat pistol. And like that desk there I got, I saw one just before I was 6 years old. And it was funny, the people's house was at, the kid was drum major at Flushing when your mother was in school, McDonald.
So I mean, the connections between these two families and the way this thing goes, it's amazing to me.
So they asked me what I want for Christmas. I says, I want a desk. They says, well, we can't afford to get it for you. I says, I don't care. Santa Claus will bring me one. But that was the idea I had then.
Yeah.
And my first BB gun, I got that when I was 10 years old. My Uncle Don gave it to me. It was his, and I still have it in the closet. It needs a spring, and the stock is cracked. But I still have the BB gun that he gave me when I was 10 years old.
And that was 1948.
Yeah, and he had it about 16 years before that. Because he fought in World War II. He got shot in the leg by a Jap Zero during World War II in the Philippines.
Now, Uncle Don and Uncle Manley were the only two that was actually in World War II.
Yes, because Uncle Bill was too nervous. But I don't know if I said my Uncle Lloyd, from my mother's side, fought in World War I.
Right. He was too old for World War II.
Oh, yes, yes.
Now, Uncle Manley.
Oh, Uncle Reynolds.
Yeah.
His name was Lawrence Reynolds. That's why he named Larry Lawrence.
So you got Uncle on your side and Grandpa Pelch on the other
Right.
side.